How many students are POL 101 students? Okay. How many are second-year students entering a program? See, there weren't so many of the program people who came last year, but it's designed for the use of both of you, both groups. The idea is to welcome you, because we're a big department, and the first half hour, I'm going to introduce you first to Ryan Balot, the associate chair, and then a couple of our instructors who are also lawyers and who are also alumni of our department to talk about what you can do with the poli-sci degree, and then an undergrad student, Elizabeth, who's going to talk, who's towards the end of her undergrad studies, 4th year, and we'll talk about, here's what I learned that you should know. And we're only going to do that for half an hour, and then after that we're going to have these workshops. The breakout workshops are in the rooms that you see listed on your colored sheet, and those go for 20 minutes each. These are kind of quick hit skill development or aptitude or awareness development exercises with respect to research, writing, and careers. We come back at 3:30. At that time, I will talk. We come back to where do we go at 3:30? It says here somewhere. I think we come back here. Yeah, and then I talk for a while about the design of the political science discipline, why it is designed the way it is. I'll talk from some slides. Then we have a half hour decompression, more coffee, more pop session at the end, okay? All right. Okay, so with no further ado, and at that time, maybe things are a bit rushed right now, but there'll be more time for kind of open that last half hour. If you got questions, I've been wanting to speak all day to you, Haddo, then you can ask me a question or something else. I'm going to first introduce you, Lou Pauly, our department chair, couldn't be here today. He's at a conference. But Ryan Balot, Professor Ryan Balot, was the chair last year, and he is still an associate chair in the department. And he's going to talk for about 10 minutes about our department and welcoming you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Haddow. Well, welcome to everybody. I teach political theory in the department, and I've been in the department for about 10 years. And I think it's a great department, but one of the things that I thought was funny about the name of the session that you're attending today, reorientation. I don't know if this microphone is on. Let's see. Is a reorientation. It struck me that you've had an orientation, and your orientation is toward studying political science, and now it sounds as though we're sort of trying to reorient you, as though your initial orientation was somehow fundamentally misguided, so that we're going to reorient you to study mathematics.
This is a political theory student. Excellent.
You have to attack the question. So instead of reorienting you in that way, what I thought it would be useful to do is to try to maybe deepen your existing orientation toward the study of politics by asking why you might spend the bulk, let's say, of your undergraduate career studying politics in our department. Well, it strikes me that often people explain the decision to study political science on purely instrumental grounds. What I mean is that they will say things like, corporations now realize that it's very useful to have a background in a subject like political science. And that may or may not be the case. I don't know. I don't know what the empirical evidence is on that, but it strikes me that that's not a very successful way to understand your motivation for studying political science. If that's your motivation, then I think you will inevitably be frustrated and disappointed. I think, in fact, that you should defer questions about your career and think about some other things that I'm going to talk about right now. In political science, I think that we get some of the most idealistic students in the entire university. And they come to political science, you come to political science in part, I presume, because you're interested in improving the world around you. Maybe there are even visionaries among you who would aim at grand visions of social justice, things that are hard to imagine in the present day and age. And there's a contrast, I think, between the idealism of our students and the content of politics itself. Often when you look at what's going on in politics, it's a very dirty business. And I'm not talking simply about the mudslinging and so forth that you find in a political campaign, such as the ones that are going on right now, but rather, even more importantly, the kinds of violent struggles for control over people, territory, resources, and so forth that you see so frequently throughout the world. So I think it takes a group of idealistic students to approach that kind of relatively dirty business of politics. Now, the thinkers that I study, the great thinkers of the European tradition, Plato, Aristotle, Hobbes, Marx, so forth, take a range of views on whether it's possible to change the world. Many of them, you find, believe that the possibility of political transformation is quite limited. Others, on the other hand, believe that profound global transformation is possible, that it's within reach. And I think that one of the reasons to study political science, if you care about politics in the world around you, is precisely to explore that question of the limits and possibilities of politics. What possibilities does politics offer, and what are the limits of politics in promoting any kind of change? So I think that studying political science helps you look at the limits and possibilities of politics in two ways in particular. First of all, much more directly, studying politics helps us just to make sense of the world around us. Kind of, I don't know if you feel this way, but when I learn something, say, like just a very sort of sketchy, schematic outline of the history of a country like South Africa, it's kind of a relief to understand how what's going on in South Africa, as you read it in the newspaper or whatever, makes sense. It comes together it hangs together in some coherent way. And I think that's what a lot of our work in this department is, to try to just make sense of the world around us. And the second thing I think it does may even be more important, and that is to not only to understand that world, but also to help us think for ourselves within that world. So I think that we are often engulfed, not overwhelmed, by ideologies, by narrowly self-interested people who are putting around stories about how the world works. And I think one of the most important things that we can do in a university, whether as a student or a professor, really, we're all students, we're all learners and searchers, is to try to penetrate through what we're being told, understand its motives, and to come to some position that we think is adequate, that sounds right to us, that makes sense to us, and to do that for ourselves, not because an authority figure, even a professor, has told us so. So in short, by way of, I hope, deepening your orientation, even your reorientation to the study of politics, I would suggest that studying political science at the University of Toronto, yes, that's the fanfare for my grand conclusion, leads us to what I would call, although I'm not the first to call it this, the examined life. Thank you.
Gerard Kennedy and Mr. Brian Kolenda. Teaching POL 340, our international law course. Also alumni of our department and Queen's Law School.
True. Thanks. So, hi everyone. We've been asked, I suppose after Ryan's brief 10-minute deferral of your consideration of your careers, we've now been asked to speak about your career prospects. Right? For those who do have some instrumental motivation for the study of politics. Right? We're here to tell you that, there's not one path. You're here for 4 years or for however many years you're here. You study what you study. If you're going to study politics, there are lots of useful skills and experiences you gain that open up many doors, and not just career-wise, right? Just in your life, in examined life or otherwise. So we will talk just a few words about our own experiences and those of people we know who have gone through this journey that you're now all embarking on, or at least or already on the way. So I'll just say a few things, then you can chime in. So first, we both graduated 2007 from this department, and after that, we both went on to law school. We now co-teach POL 340 International Law, which we both have fond memories of as students, and sort of in a twist, actually, at the time was taught by one of the partners at my law firm, who was an adjunct sessional lecturer at the time. Although we get in our class many questions from our students who ask us, well, so what about careers in the law, right? And a lot of in my own experience, not only in that class but also as a student in the department, a lot of maybe some of you even think this in the room. Well, what can I do with a politics degree? Well, I can go to law school. A lot of people have, that's just who knows what at least there's anecdotal evidence for that. And certainly there's enough of the people that we did go to law school with. Ultimately, many of them did have backgrounds in politics, but. And it's a good preparation, right? The training you receive in this department, the courses you take, the issues you study, the issues you grapple with and have to analyze and address in whatever sub issue or subfield you're taking courses in the department. Those skills are useful not only if you want to go to law school and do what we do, which is ultimately civil litigation. Really, we just now get paid to argue with people over, even frankly, much more instrumental issues than we did when we were students here. But as reflecting on my colleagues in the department at the time and what they're all doing now, the range of career and life paths are kind of astounding whenever I think about it. Some of them loved the study of politics so much, and that they became ultimately they went on to further studies in the discipline and have ultimately become professors or are on their way to becoming professors, given what I understand is now the lengthy career track that is these days. But in any event, so they've done that. Some of them have taken have worked in politics sort of on the ground, right? So I'm thinking of a good colleague, a good friend of mine, who works now for a sort of media consultancy group. Some went on to be journalists. Some went on into business. And so I also don't know the answer to the question of whether or not business people, because I'm not a business person, I'm just a lawyer, value in particular training in politics. But many of my colleagues who graduated from this department have found a great deal of success in all sorts of businesses. And when I say business, I don't just mean working for a bank or a large multinational. Some of them are entrepreneurs. Some of them have opened their own businesses or worked in smaller businesses in sort of niche, relatively small markets things that they find interesting. And I think as I speak to them now, as they are now, we're now still, less than a decade out of this experience that you're all going through. I see and hear from them, if not directly, because I don't pose this question to them directly, but I reflect upon the fact that it's apparent that the skills that they learned in terms of analyzing issues and including issues they may not be familiar with, problem solving and writing and oral discourse as well. These are all useful skills that they've applied in many different disciplines. So I encourage you to, while you should not, frankly, at this stage, start thinking about your careers. I agree. You've got a long way to go, but the world is, to use a cliche, your oyster in some respects, and you should be reassured that the study of politics in this department allows you to keep many doors open.
Thank you, Brian. I'll just build on that a little bit. And further to Professor Balot's comment, that is truly apposite and makes us feel, I think, slightly awkward coming up afterwards, that you're here for 4 years and you really should relish that time in this department to really think of political issues, whether they be theoretical, international law related, Canadian related, any historical, any other region of the world, in great depth. It's going to be rare in the future to have the time to really do it. And in the meantime, you're going to naturally think about your career and what you're ultimately going to end up doing. I don't think it's altogether realistic to postpone that. But I would encourage you to take courses, to study with professors, to write papers that you actually enjoy and actually further your knowledge. Primarily because by doing that, by doing something you actually enjoy, odds are you'll like it, you'll do it well, and you'll do better at it than you would have if you had taken something strictly for the purpose because it is quote-unquote useful. And at the side benefit, in doing that, you will likely become a better writer, a better researcher, a better analyzer. And it's those skills that, as Brian mentioned, will give you a whole host of opportunities in the future, whether they be as a journalist, whether they be working in politics on the ground, either as a politician or a staffer, a classic civil servant who's not tied to a political party, and indeed as a business person or a lawyer, which I guess is the cliched political science careers to go to. There is really no limit that a U of T undergrad cannot do. There's virtually no subject that this school does not teach. And political science in particular really, I think, dovetails the social sciences and the humanities together in a way that very few other disciplines here do. And that combination of the ability to write and to think of philosophy and theory while simultaneously seeing how it works in practice truly makes political science a practical degree that gives you both a great intellectual foundation and a practical foundation as you go forward. A bit of my own path. I was here for 4 years. I spent 3 years at Queen's. I spent some time in Europe working in the international law world, some time in grad school in the States. Now I'm back here in Toronto, both practicing and teaching. I even look back at, I guess, the 8 years since I've graduated from this university, and I can think I did a lot of different things. And my interests and desires, I guess, were piqued because I had taken a broad range of courses and been exposed to a broad group of potential career paths here at U of T Political Science. We've spoken for 10 minutes now. I don't want to overstay our welcome, but we both teach POL 340, and if you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on the departmental website. Thank you very much.
Elizabeth Tudor-Bezies.
Hi everyone. My name's Elizabeth, as you've heard. I'm a fourth year political science double major with political science and European studies. So I just want to tell you a little bit about my experience and what I guess some tips on how to survive your first year, I guess. First off, I want to say congrats on getting into U of T and good luck with everything because it's going to be a little bit crazy and it's going to go by so quickly, believe me. First off, I guess the first thing to do is explore your options. Like this is something that has kind of been expressed by Professor Kennedy, and it's something that you should definitely look into. POL 101 is really good in that situation because it gives you so many different topics in political science that you can look at and you say, okay, so this certain thing is what I really like. This topic is not what I like. So it helps you decide what you kind of prefer and what you do not prefer. In second year, when you become a political science major or minor, whatever you decide, it also gives you some compulsory classes you'll need to take, and then also look through the arts and science calendar. This is something that has been really helpful for me, and the timetable too, because there's some classes that you never thought actually existed, and then you thought, actually, this is really cool, I really want to take it, and then it may actually become your passion. Another big thing to do is go to open houses. The open houses for different programs, I think, have been really helpful for me too. I didn't actually know European studies existed until I got lost at the monk school, and then I got dragged in by a teacher. And that's something that you should think about too. Focus on political science, but also think about specializing in an area, a certain area of political science. I'm in European studies, but certain people may be interested in near Middle Eastern civilizations or African studies. U of T has a lot of those opportunities. And even certain things like peace, conflict, and justice, they have really great stuff. Or if you want to focus on human rights, there are lots of classes concerning that. So that's really helpful. I think in terms of studying and trying to do well in classes, each college has a writing center. And those writing centers, I wish I've gone to a little bit more because I think they're actually really helpful. And everyone's really, really helpful and they want to help you succeed. So don't be afraid to go, book an appointment, and they'll help you figure out your essay. Even if you just have somebody to like bounce off with for ideas or just to look over your thesis to make sure it makes sense, that's really great. There's also look around the Political Association of Political Science Students. Busha over here is the president, and if you have any questions about the political science students, you can definitely ask her. They have been really great, and they arrange a bunch of different events that have different topics related to political science. So it's actually really cool to hear different political science teachers speak about a variety of things. So it's pretty great. And they also have this really cool thing called the mentorship program. So you get partnered up with an upper year student and they help you figure out, political science, what you want to do, like any career advice, or just to look over your essays as well. So that's really great. Certain colleges as well have peer counselors. I myself am the peer counselor for political science at Trinity College. So if anyone's from Trinity, come see me because I'm that. I'm sure other colleges have something similar, so it's pretty great. Another thing, like some Kolenda and Kennedy were talking a little bit about careers. It's really helpful to go to the career center. They have so many the political science department has a lot of help too for that. They have a big sheet. I literally got a sheet last year of just like different internships that you could do that's related to political science. And it's a bit daunting, but it's really helpful. You just go through the list, like, okay, maybe I'll apply for here, maybe I'll apply for there. And yeah, it's really great. U of T political science department definitely has a lot of resources that I don't think a lot of people use. So definitely go around to the political science department, ask a lot of questions. And that's something I just want to finish off with. Ask questions all the time. Go to your professors. You're not bothering them. You're paying a lot of money to attend these classes. So seriously, go to them, ask them questions about, not even just about the class, about like any advice or their career paths or their suggestions for classes that they might think is interesting. Get to know your professors because they'll be extremely helpful in the future. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to end with. And once again, best of luck, and I wish you all the best.
And do recall, as Elizabeth said, your props are available after class usually, and they also have office time. And you will find that when you go to their office hours, there's no long lineup of other students to speak to them. You've got that time, okay? And I suggest you do use it. I think most will actually think first of things related to the course, but then tangentially related to the course, and then other things related to your career and your future objectives.